They say money solves problems. It doesn't. It just changes the scenery. When I was 30 years old, I was what the magazines called a young titan. Successful, arrogant, and miserably unhappy. I was trapped. Not by poverty, but by expectation. This story begins at a gala, a suffocating gilded cage of an event my father, Victor, had dragged me to. It was supposed to cement a corporate merger with a handshake and an engagement ring. I was cornered by my father, who was gesturing animatedly toward a woman named Serafina, a political heiress whose smile was as vacant as her eyes. "She's perfect, Julian," my father hissed under the cover of the band. "Her family controls half the state senate. It's time you settled down with someone appropriate." My jaw tightened. Since my last business failure, my father's matchmaking attempts had become increasingly aggressive. I felt like a prize asset being traded. My eyes scanned the room for any escape, and then they met hers. She was across the ballroom, looking just as trapped as I felt. Young, maybe 22, and clearly out of place in a simple, dark dress. She had intelligent eyes, currently blazing with a mix of humiliation and pure defiance. I watched as a man, rich, drunk, and smelling of old entitlement, cornered her. "I don't believe we've met," the man slurred, looking her up and down as if she were an item on a menu. "You must be with the catering staff. Could you fetch me another scotch?" The insult was a public execution. Her face flushed, her knuckles white. She was about to turn and flee, her dignity in tatters. In that instant, I saw my chance. It was reckless, impulsive, born of my own desperation and a sudden fierce urge to save the girl with the defiant eyes. I excused myself from my father with a curt nod, leaving him mid-sentence. I crossed the ballroom with the singular focus of a predator. The crowd parted for me. I didn't stop until I was right beside her. I ignored the arrogant guest completely, my focus entirely on her. I leaned in, my voice a low, conspiratorial whisper, a secret shared in a room full of strangers. "Pretend to be my fiancée." She stared at me, her mind reeling. She knew who I was, the arrogant son of Victor Thorne, the one she'd seen in the business pages. "What?" she breathed. "Play along," I murmured, my eyes holding hers. "I'll make it worth your while." Before she could protest, I took her hand. It was small, but steady. I turned to face my stunned father and the approaching Serafina, pulling the girl, whose name I still didn't know, gently to my side. "Father," I said, my voice smooth as silk, projecting just enough for those nearby to hear. "I'd like you to finally meet my fiancée, Alana. We were hoping to keep it a secret a little longer, but I suppose there's no time like the present." A collective gasp rippled through the vicinity. The drunk man stared, his mouth agape. My father looked as if he had been struck by lightning. I smiled, a dazzling, charming smile that was pure performance. I brought her hand to my lips and kissed her knuckles, my eyes never leaving hers. "Darling," I said, my voice a low caress. "I believe they're playing our song." For the rest of the night, we were a whirlwind of convincing fiction. I never left her side, my hand resting on the small of her back. A gesture of possessive intimacy that sent a charge through both of us. I whispered witty observations that made her laugh. A real, genuine laugh that surprised me. We danced, and in my arms, she felt like the escape I desperately needed. The chemistry between us was a palpable electric current, confusing and thrilling us in equal measure. At the end of the night, I escorted her to the hotel's grand entrance, away from the prying eyes. The fantasy was over. We stood on the curb, the cool night air replacing the heat of the ballroom. "You were convincing," I said, my voice deliberately returning to its cool, professional tone. "I needed distance." "You're not a bad actor yourself, Julian," she replied, her heart still clearly visible in her eyes. I reached into my jacket and handed her a slim black business card. "I'll be in touch." With that, I disappeared into my waiting black car, leaving her standing there. I knew she was looking at the card, wondering as I drove away, what in the world had just happened? The week after the gala was a blur for me. Board meetings, hospital crises, the fallout from announcing a surprise engagement to a woman I'd just met. But I had my freedom. The week for her, I soon discovered, was a return to harsh reality. I had my team do a deep dive. I needed to know everything about her. I found her that afternoon, working a lunch rush at a small, greasy diner. She was balancing a tray when the room fell silent, the same hush that always followed me. I walked to the counter. "Miss Alana," I said, my voice cutting through the clatter. "I believe we have some business to discuss." I led her to a quiet corner booth and laid out the grim reality of her life, like reading a patient's chart. Her mother's congestive heart failure, the mounting debt, the 2 jobs that still wouldn't cover the medication. I didn't waste a moment on small talk. "I am proposing a formal arrangement. A 1-year contract. You will perform the duties of my fiancée in a public-facing capacity. You will attend corporate and social events. You will maintain the illusion we created." I paused, letting the weight of my next words land. "In exchange, I will settle every one of your family's debts immediately. Furthermore, your mother will be transferred to a private room at Thorne General. Every test, every procedure, all of it will be covered. She will want for nothing." It was a miracle, a lifeline, everything she had been praying for. "Why?" she asked, her voice a whisper. "Why me?" "You are pragmatic," I stated simply. "Intelligent, poised under pressure, and you have a clear, powerful motivation to see this contract through. You are a predictable variable in an otherwise chaotic world." I leaned forward slightly. "And because my last marriage taught me a valuable lesson. Love is a liability. Emotions are a variable I will not entertain again." I slid a sleek tablet across the table. "The contract is all there." Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the legal text. Then she saw it. Article 11. Emotional Attachment Termination Clause. The clause stipulated that the contract was contingent on the relationship remaining a purely transactional performance. If either party were to develop genuine romantic feelings, they were contractually obligated to confess them immediately. Upon such a confession, the contract would be instantly terminated. All future financial benefits, including the ongoing medical care, would cease. It was a beautiful, diabolical safeguard. If she fell for me and was honest, she would lose everything. If she fell for me and lied, she would become the one thing I despised. "This is impossible," she breathed, looking up at me. "It's a punishment for having a heart." "It's a safeguard," I corrected, my voice cold and sharp as a scalpel. "I do not deal in emotional variables, Miss Alana. This is a business arrangement. My terms are absolute." She looked at my face, then she thought of her mother. She had no choice. With a trembling finger, she pressed the digital signature line. Her name appeared in crisp electronic script. The word "accepted" glowed. The move to my penthouse was a surreal experience. She arrived and I greeted her in the living room. "Your quarters are in the East Wing. My own suite is in the West Wing," I stated. A clear physical distance helps maintain emotional clarity. Remember the clause. The reminder was necessary. Her first official duty was a fundraising dinner. After the stylists were finished, she was transformed, a creature of high society I barely recognized. "Acceptable," I said, the single word of approval delivered with the emotional warmth of a lab report. But as I escorted her to the car, my hand resting on the small of her back, I felt a subtle tremor in my fingers. At the event, I was the master performer, the devoted, charming fiancé. I'd lean in to whisper a witty observation, my breath warm against her skin, making her shiver. The most difficult moment came when my father approached, his eyes sharp and critical. "Well, Julian," he said, his gaze raking over her, "you certainly are full of surprises." "Alana is the best surprise of my life," I replied smoothly, pulling her closer and pressing a soft, lingering kiss to her cheek. The gesture was for my father's benefit, but my lips were warm, my touch gentle, and for a fraction of a second, her eyes fluttered shut. I felt something, a genuine, undeniable spark, and I knew with a terrifying certainty that she had felt it too. The ride back to the penthouse was thick with a new, unspoken tension. The air crackled with the ghost of that kiss. We stood in the silent living room, the city lights glittering below us. "You performed well tonight," I said, my voice strained. I wouldn't look at her. "You too," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. We were both thinking the same thing. The press of my lips on her cheek, the way she had leaned into my touch. It had felt too real. I cleared my throat, taking a step back, physically reestablishing the distance. "Good night, Alana," I said abruptly, my voice cool and formal. I retreated to the safety of my wing. The denial had begun. We had both felt the first dangerous spark of genuine emotion, and we both knew, with a cold, terrifying clarity, that admitting it, even to ourselves, would mean the end of the arrangement we both so desperately needed. The game had just become infinitely more dangerous. The stress of her new double life, the constant performance, the anxiety of upholding the contract, the whiplash of my own hot and cold behavior, began to take its toll. A week later, she woke up sick. She dismissed it as exhaustion, popping painkillers, determined not to show weakness. She had to accompany me to a luncheon with the board of trustees. By midday, however, the headache was a pounding drum. She felt dizzy and weak. We were standing in the pre-luncheon reception when it happened. I was deep in conversation, but my clinical gaze, the same gaze I use in surgery, zeroed in on her instantly. I saw her pale face, the tremor in her hand, the sheen of sweat. In a move that stunned the entire room, I abruptly cut off the hospital chairman, strode across the hall, and took her by the arm. "Excuse us," I announced, my voice a low, firm command. "My fiancé is not feeling well. We're leaving." In the elevator, she protested weakly. "I'm fine." "You're not fine," I countered. I placed the back of my hand against her forehead. "You have a fever. You're going home, and you're going to bed." It was an order delivered with the full force of my authority as both her contractual husband and a doctor. Back at the penthouse, I didn't just send her to her room. I followed her. I canceled all my afternoon surgeries, a move I knew was practically unheard of. I brought her soup, medication, and water. I was brusque, my bedside manner clinical, but my worry was a tangible thing in the room. That night, the fever spiked. She drifted in and out of a restless sleep. At one point, I was sitting in the chair beside her bed, watching her, when she whimpered half asleep. "Shh, it's all right," I murmured. She cracked her eyes open. "You're still here." "I'm here," I confirmed softly. I reached out to check her temperature again. As my hand rested on her forehead, my thumb, in a slow, unconscious gesture, stroked her temple. It was not the action of a doctor. It was an act of genuine care. I snatched my hand back as if I had been burned, a look of shock and self-reproach flashing across my face. I had broken my own cardinal rule. I had allowed an emotional variable to enter the equation. Without another word, I stood up and walked out of the room. She was terrified, I realized, not of me or the flu, but of the undeniable, terrifying truth that her own heart was betraying her. A new, fragile tension settled between us after she recovered. My act of care and subsequent panicked retreat had been a silent confession. We both knew I had felt something, and we both knew we couldn't talk about it. "We have to go to Florence," I announced one evening, my tone brusque. "Neurosymposium at the Carnegie University Hospital. Your presence as my devoted fiancé is expected. We leave Friday." The thought of being trapped with her for 3 days in the most romantic city in the world was pure, sun-drenched torture. Florence was a beautiful, agonizing test. To maintain our public image, we were forced into constant, performative intimacy. We had to share a suite, walk arm in arm through the streets and pose for pictures. On the Ponte Vecchio, a photographer directed us. "Closer. Dr. Thorne, put your arm around her. Mrs. Thorne, laugh, look at him like you adore him." My arm felt like a brand around her waist. She forced a laugh, tilting her head back to look at me, and I was startled by the raw, unguarded intensity in my own eyes. I was looking down at her not as a business partner, but as a man. Later, we talked over gelato in a piazza. For a moment, we forgot we were performing. It was easy. It was natural. It was terrifying. The breaking point came on our last night. After dinner, we walked back to the hotel. We stumbled upon a small, hidden piazza where a lone violinist was playing a hauntingly beautiful, romantic melody. We stopped, drawn in by the music. We stood in the soft glow of the gas lamps, the melody of longing filling the space between us. I turned to look at her. The world melted away. There was no contract. There was only the music, the moonlight, and the undeniable truth in her eyes. I saw Alana, and she saw me. Julian, the man, not the surgeon. Slowly, inevitably, I began to lean in. The desire in my eyes was a clear, unambiguous confession. My lips were inches from hers, the kiss that would end everything. And then, at the exact same instant, we both flinched back as if we had been electrocuted. Panic flashed in our eyes, the shared, terrifying realization of what we had almost done. We had almost chosen a moment of truth over a year of security. "It's getting late," I said, my voice strained. "Yes, we should go," she replied, a breathless whisper. We walked back to the hotel in suffocating, frantic silence, a full foot of space between us. Each of us was trapped in our own private terror, horrified not by the rules of the contract, but by the uncontrollable laws of our own hearts. The flight back from Florence was a study in silent, agonizing tension. We sat side by side, a chasm of unspoken words between us. The near kiss had shattered our fragile truce. They returned to the penthouse, the physical distance a welcome shield. We avoided each other for 2 days, communicating only through stiff, professional text messages. The explosion came not from within, but from the outside world. On the 3rd day after we returned from Florence, I was in my study when Alana found a headline. It was an exclusive excerpt from the tell-all memoir of my ex-wife, Catherine. The title, The Ice King's Meltdown, My Life with Dr. Heartless. My ex-wife painted me as a cold, unfeeling monster. She twisted my dedication to work into a pathological obsession, my quiet nature into cruel, emotional withholding. The article was a viral sensation, the comments section a cesspool of vitriol directed at me. I stood by the bar in my dark study, staring out the massive window, a glass of whiskey in my hand. My posture was rigid with a pain that was almost a physical presence. "Henry," Alana said softly from the doorway, "you shouldn't be here." I rasped. Go to your room. I read the article, she said, walking further into the room. It's all lies. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Is it? A cold, unfeeling man who uses contracts to manage his relationships? Sounds about right, doesn't it? No, she said, her voice firm. She walked over and gently took the whiskey glass from my hand. She doesn't deserve your pain, Julian. She's not worth it. I finally turned to look at her, and the raw, unguarded agony in my eyes made her heart ache. The carefully constructed walls of the billionaire surgeon had crumbled. And what do you know about it? I asked, thick with bitterness. What do you know about what I deserve? I know, she said, her voice softening, her gaze holding mine. That the man she describes is not the man who took care of me when I was sick. He's not the man who made me laugh in a piazza in Florence. He's not the man I see right now. Her fierce, unexpected loyalty, her unwavering defense of me, was the one thing I was not prepared for. It shattered the last of my defenses. The pain, the humiliation, the loneliness. It all coalesced into a single, desperate, overwhelming need. With a low groan that came from the depths of my soul, I pulled her to me, my hands tangled in her hair, my mouth crashing down on hers. It was a kiss of desperation, of starvation. It was raw, hungry, and utterly consuming. A desperate attempt to blot out the pain of the past with the undeniable, breathtaking reality of the present. Alana met my desperation with her own. The kiss finally ended. We pulled apart, breathless, our foreheads resting against each other. We stared into each other's eyes, the air crackling with the aftershock. The horror of our action dawned on us both at the same moment. We had just, in the most undeniable way possible, broken the contract. It was over. I was the first to pull away, stumbling back as if I had been physically struck. I stared at her, my face a mask of horror and self-loathing. I kissed you, I said, my voice hollow. I felt attachment. I walked over to my desk, my movements stiff, robotic. According to Article 11 of our agreement, I recited, the words, sounding like a death sentence. The contract is now terminated. I began typing on my computer, preparing the final fund transfer. I was amputating the limb to save the body, cutting her out of my life to preserve the cold, empty order I had built. Alana watched me, her heart shattering. He was going to push her away, all because of a clause he created to protect a heart that was already clearly broken. Wait, she said, her voice trembling but firm. The terms are clear, Alana. I broke the clause. The consequences are automatic. Then you're a fool, she shot back, walking to my desk and standing before me. If we're going to invoke the one clause that demands the truth, then let's be completely honest. She took a deep, steadying breath. You weren't the only one who broke the contract, Julian, she confessed, her gaze unwavering. I broke it too, weeks ago. I fell in love with you. I am in love with you. Her confession hung in the air, a stunning, beautiful counter move. I stared at her, utterly speechless. I had prepared for every contingency, except this one. The impossible clause had created an impossible impasse. I had broken the rule, so I was obligated to end the contract. But she had broken it too. If they were both in breach, who had the right to enforce the penalty? So, what now, Julian? She asked softly, a challenge in her eyes. You can't fire me for breaking a rule you broke yourself. Your perfect, logical, emotion-proof contract, it has a loophole. I looked from her defiant, loving face to the termination papers on my screen. My entire world, built on rules and control, had just been turned upside down by the one variable I refused to entertain. I had absolutely no idea what to do. The mutual confession left us in an impossible, suspended state. The contract was broken, yet it couldn't be enforced. We spent the next 2 days as ghosts in the magnificent apartment. Finally, it was Alana who broke the silence. "I have to go," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I can't stay here like this, Julian. Not in this limbo. The contract is broken. The reason I'm here is gone. I need to think. I need space." I turned to face her, my expression etched with a pain that mirrored her own. I wanted to argue, to tell her to stay, but I had no right. I was the one who had written the rules. "I understand," I said, my voice rough. Leaving the penthouse felt like tearing a part of herself away. She returned to her old, modest apartment. The debts were gone. Her mother's health was secure. The practical reasons for the contract were fulfilled. But her life, which should have felt free, now felt empty, colorless. I, meanwhile, was adrift in my own cold, empty fortress. The penthouse was a monument to my failure. Her absence was a physical presence, a void in every room. I had built a world to protect myself from emotion, and now I was drowning in it. I had lost. I had tried to control love, and love had shattered my perfect, logical world. A week after Alana left, my mother, Eleonora, arrived at the penthouse for our scheduled dinner. She found me in my study, staring at a blank wall. "Good heavens, Julian," she said, her sharp eyes taking in my disheveled appearance. "You look dreadful. Where is that girl? The Alana girl?" "She's gone," I said, my voice flat. "Gone? What do you mean, gone? I was just beginning to like her. She had a spine." Eleonora sniffed, then surprised me by demanding, "What did you do?" For the first time in my life, I told my mother the complete truth. The contract, the impossible clause, the kiss, the mutual confession, and Alana's departure. Eleonora listened, unreadable. When I finished, she was silent. I expected a lecture. Instead, she let out an exasperated sigh. "You, my son," she said, her voice surprisingly gentle, "are a brilliant, brilliant idiot." She stood up and walked over to me. "You create a ridiculous self-sabotaging rule to protect yourself from getting hurt. And when you finally find a woman with the strength and character to actually break through it, you let her walk away because of it. Of all the foolish, illogical things you have ever done, this is by far the most stupid." I stared at her, stunned. My mother, the formidable matriarch, was taking Alana's side. She patted my cheek, a rare gesture of affection. "That girl looks at you like you hung the moon. And you, my son, haven't looked this alive, this human, since before your father died. Now stop moping and go fix the mess you made." With that, she turned and left. Her words were like a key turning in a lock I didn't even know was there. My mother's words stripped away my last defense, the cold, hard logic of the contract. I realized that my entire life had been about mitigating risk. But the greatest risk, I now understood, was not in loving and getting hurt. The greatest risk was in never loving at all. I couldn't stand the silence of the penthouse for another second. I drove with no destination, finding myself an hour later, parked across the street from the small, unassuming diner. I watched the steam fogging up the windows, and then I saw her. She was sitting alone at a small table by the window, a cup of coffee cradled in her hands, looking sad and distant. I was terrified. I, Julian Thorne, who could command a boardroom, was terrified of walking across the street and speaking to a waitress. Taking a deep breath, I got out of the car. The bell above the door chimed, announcing my arrival. She looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. I walked to her table and sat down. "You were right," I said finally, my voice raw and quiet. "I was a fool. I built a fortress of ice around myself to protect me, and I didn't realize I was freezing to death inside it. I reached across the table, my hand hovering over hers, not daring to touch her. And then you came along. You didn't try to break down the walls. You just brought so much warmth and light that you melted them from the inside out. "I'm terrified, Alana," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "But I'm much more terrified of the thought of living the rest of my life without you." I slid a document across the table. It wasn't a contract. It was a single, first-class, open-ended plane ticket to anywhere in the world. "You are free, Alana. The trust for your mother's care is irrevocable. It's secured for her lifetime, no matter what. You don't owe me anything. You can take this ticket and you can go anywhere, be anyone, build any life you want, and I will never bother you again." I looked at her, my heart in my eyes. "But I hope," I whispered, my voice breaking, "that you choose to stay. I hope you choose me." I stood up, unable to wait for her answer. I had laid my heart, my hope, and my vulnerability on the table. I had given her the ultimate choice with no strings, no clauses, no conditions. I turned and walked out of the diner, leaving her alone with the ticket to anywhere, and the unspoken question of whether her world was still with me. Alana sat in the quiet diner. The murmur of conversations and the clinking of cutlery in that diner faded into a distant hum. The only thing that felt real was the plane ticket resting on the table. It represented absolute freedom. Paris, Rome, Tokyo, a new life, a chance to be the artist she'd always dreamed of being, with no debts, no worries, no attachments. It was everything she should have wanted. But as she looked at it, she felt a profound hollow ache. A world without Julian in it, no matter how exotic, felt like a world in black and white. He was the color. He was the chaotic, terrifying, beautiful variable that made her feel alive. She thought of his face when he had made his plea, the raw vulnerability, the hope. He had given her the ultimate gift, a choice with no strings attached. He had finally truly trusted her. She didn't need to think. Her heart had already decided weeks ago. She left the ticket on the table, a silent offering to a life she no longer wanted, and walked out of the diner. I was in my study, pacing like a caged animal. I had played my final card, and now I was completely, utterly powerless. Then, I heard the soft chime of the private elevator. My heart stopped. I stood frozen, barely breathing, as soft footsteps approached my office. The door opened. It was Alana. She stood in the doorway, her expression calm and certain. She didn't say a word. She walked to the bar where I had left the open plane ticket and picked it up. She then walked over to the large abstract painting on the wall. "What are you doing?" I finally asked, my voice a whisper. "I'm redecorating," she said simply. She walked back to me, stopping just a few feet away. "I don't want a ticket to the world, Julian," she said, her voice soft but ringing with strength. "I already have my world." She took a step closer. "It's here with you." The relief that washed over my face was so profound, it was like watching a statue come to life. I crossed the space between us in a single stride, my hands framing her face as if to ensure she was real. "I thought I'd lost you," I breathed, my forehead resting against hers. "Never," she whispered. "You just had to come and find me." I pulled her into a hug, a desperate, all-encompassing embrace. It was the first time we had held each other without the shadow of the contract, without fear. "I love you, Alana," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I love you, Julian," she replied, her voice full of a joy so pure it brought tears to my eyes. We had found our way back to each other, not by following the rules, but by having the courage to break them. The weeks that followed were a revelation, living together without the suffocating weight of the contract. We learned the simple, beautiful rhythm of being a real couple. I, the cold clinical surgeon, was replaced by a warm, attentive partner. My smile was genuine, my eyes full of a love I no longer tried to hide. I even converted one of the penthouse spare rooms into a beautiful, light-filled studio for her art. One evening, I came home with a mysterious smile. "Put on something nice. We have a reservation." I took her back to the opulent plaza, the hotel where our strange, complicated story had begun. But I led her up a private elevator to a stunning rooftop terrace that had been closed to the public for the night. It was empty, save for a single table set for two, surrounded by hundreds of flickering candles. "Julian, what is all this?" she breathed. "This is where we had our first pretend moment," I said, taking her hands in mine. "I wanted our first real one to be here too." I looked at her, my gray eyes, once analytical, now filled with profound love. "Our contract is over, Alana," I began, my voice low and serious. "But I find myself wanting to propose a new one, a permanent one." I slowly got down on one knee. The billionaire, the man who commanded operating theaters, was kneeling before her under the stars. I pulled a small velvet box from my pocket. "Alana Scott," I said, my voice thick. "You came into my life as a variable I couldn't control, and you became the only thing I can't live without. You taught me that a life without risk is a life without joy, and a heart without love is just an organ. Our first agreement had an impossible clause. I want to make you a new one with no clauses, no conditions, no end date. Will you marry me, Alana, for real this time?" Tears of pure, unadulterated joy streamed down her face. "Yes," she whispered, her voice choked with happiness. "Yes, of course, yes." A year later, at our intimate wedding, my mother sat beside Alana's mother, a rare, genuine smile on her face. As Alana walked down the aisle, I saw the love in her eyes, a warm, brilliant light. Later at the reception, I pulled her away for a quiet moment, by the same fountain where we had first seen each other. "I have something for you," I said, pulling out a small folded piece of paper, a cocktail napkin from the hotel bar. "Our final contract." She unfolded it. On it, I had written a single sentence in my sharp, decisive handwriting. The final clause: Party A, Julian, and Party B, Alana, hereby agree to break the emotional attachment termination clause joyfully and with extreme prejudice every single day for the rest of their lives. Alana laughed, a sound of pure joy. "This is the best contract you've ever written." We signed our names on the napkin. I folded it carefully and placed it back in my pocket, close to my heart. "Binding for a lifetime," I said, pulling her into my arms. Our story started with a lie whispered in a crowded room, a game of pretend with impossible rules. But it ended here with a truth written on a napkin, a testament to the beautiful, undeniable fact that the best rules are the ones that are broken by love. And that is my story. It's a powerful lesson, even for a millionaire. I risked everything: my wealth, my reputation, my carefully constructed emotional shield, and gained the one thing money could never buy. If you enjoyed this journey into the cost of emotional truth, tell me, have you ever had to choose between security and happiness? Did you take the leap? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to hit subscribe to The Elder's Voice for more stories that prove it's never too late to learn what really matters. Thank you for keeping me company.